Hi there, welcome to No Nonsense Whiskey. My name's Vin PF, and on today's episode we're going back to some more English spirits. I'm keen to say the word spirit because what we don't have here is a whiskey. It's the second week on the trot now. I've covered an English distillery and a spirit and not a whiskey. But in any case, we have the Henstone Distillery, and this is the Old Dog Corn Liqueur. Now, they can't call this a whiskey because it's only been aged for less than a year, but we're getting this kind of lovely colour off of that. And what they're trying to do here is kind of, they call it their Bourbon Equivalent, but what they're trying to do is sort of replicate a bourbon-esque vibe, but they're not sort of really going hard at that bourbon thing. You know, it's made in a similar way, I guess, but yeah, they're calling it the Old Dog Corn Liqueur. Now that's based off of a link to a mine that's fairly in the area. It's kind of like the Old Dog Mine, they're literally calling it that. And the corn liqueur is because the mash bill is predominantly corn, but it also contains some wheat and some malted barley. Also aged in new oak, so, you know, tick, tick, tick for all the kind of like bourbon-esque vibes about it. Now, they're not trying to meet any kind of like bourbon requirements. Obviously, they can't call it bourbon because it's not made in the US. But yeah, they're just trying to do some interesting things with spirits. You know, they've got their whiskey, they've got all the different batches of that, and this is no different. You know, on here we've got the handwritten label at the bottom, who it was bottled by, when it was bottled, and the batch and the bottle number. So in this case, we've got batch number 3 and bottle number 198. Now, something they do for their whiskey on the website is you can look up that batch code and see exactly how they made it, any differences, any barrel types, whatever. They haven't done this yet, I don't think, for the corn liqueur. At least at the time of recording, I did do a quick check, and I know that that's in the works. I think they're thinking about doing that as well, because it's interesting how they're making this thing. You know, it's similar but not quite there with bourbon. But yeah, so what we've got again is like an 8-month to a year old whiskey. You know, it's a spirit. You know, not a whiskey. We're getting this lovely thing now. It sells for about £35, and as always, we'll get into the value of that a bit later on. And it's 41.5% ABV, which is pretty good. You know, it's not up there, but I'm sure it's for a good reason. Enough said. Let's get into the actual whiskey and see what we've got in the glass and see how it stacks up. You know, if they're going for bourbon equivalent, we'll sort of have a look at those links. Let's get onto the nose and see what we've got. Now, for me, I mean, it's okay. Something I will say right at the start is that if you're expecting something like, based on what we've been saying here about bourbon equivalent, it's not like a bourbon nose at all. In fact, it's not really like a kind of normal, in quotes, kind of whiskey smell. It is lovely though. It is a step in a different direction, I would say, for sure. So just make sure you're aware of that before you pick up something like this, because you've got to be into that kind of innovation, that you've got to be into those different flavour profiles and things that break out from the norm. If you're not into that, then you're probably not going to find anything in this. But if you are, onto my actual tasting notes. For me, it's bags of, I'm calling it sugar-coated sweets, so things like pear drops and other squashy sweets are available, and hard sweets for that matter, with some honeysuckle. And here's a weird one. So I get citrus a lot in whiskey. I get kind of oranges, we get lemons. These are all things. But in this one here, I get a dash of lime, which I have to say I've never got on a whiskey or spirit or whiskey equivalent ever before, and I do love a bit of lime. So yeah, it's a weird but very interesting nose, and one that just keeps giving. Something else I will say before I get onto the palate, you'll notice that I'm down about 2/3, nearly half a bottle, and I think that's important. What I tried on the neck pour is not the same as I'm trying now, for sure. So, 100%. I mean, you know me, I will never review a neck pour because of that exact reason only. It changes so much throughout the bottle, but for me, this is kind of a sweet spot now. It's really opening up and bringing out these extra flavours for sure. Onto the palate then. So for me, it's more of those fizzy sweets, more of those kind of pears. We often talk in whiskey about orchard fruits, apples and pears, but this is like really pear prevalent, which is again very uncommon. It exists, but it's uncommon. And then it's got like a decent layer of spiciness on the back end. We're talking like a touch of cinnamon and a bit of black pepper, like cracked black pepper. It's quite spicy. The finish, medium. It's not overly long, overly short. It's kind of medium. And that sweetness kind of sticks around a little bit, but then sours out a bit as well, which is kind of cool. You often get those with those sugary sweets, is that it's sweet to start with and then sour in the finish. So yeah, kind of really reinforcing that analogy. Yeah, for me, I'm really happy with this. I got it on the back end of a Zoom tasting I did on my Discord server. Usually there's a link in the description below for that if you want to join that. It should just be an open link and you can join that server and talk whiskey and other stuff. Lots of stuff going on there. But yeah, we had Henstone on for a tasting, and it was really good. We got to try their new make, this, and their whiskey. I bought this straight away after. They did offer us a small discount, something like 10%, so I think I probably paid about just over 30 for it, plus postage, so another 5 or whatever. But yeah, really happy with that because it's something really interesting for a pretty good price. You know, if you're talking comparing years for price, all right, fine, whatever. But again, I reiterate over and over again when we're talking about these really small upstart distilleries, they don't have the capability to produce massive quantities of liquid cheaply, thus bringing the price of the bottles down like some of their 400-year-old Scottish cousins. So yeah, there is an extra element of cost to this. Like their whiskey is like £55, not that cheap, but it's worth it in the grand scheme of things, I think. And the same here, you know, they've produced a nice, relatively cheap drink that is great. You know, I'm really enjoying this, and it's getting a lot of attention online as well. It isn't going to be for everyone, I will state that for sure. 100% try a sample if you're not sure about trying something like this. But if you're into trying something that will sort of break your misconceptions about whiskey and allow you to try something new and try something that will challenge your palate, I would say it's a bit of a no-brainer, to be honest, especially if you're in the UK. I think, again, I apologise to my worldwide audience because I cover a lot of things that are available to me, as anyone would do. You know, like the US guys covering a lot of bourbon. If you're in the UK, long story long, I would say give them a chance. Give them a shot and try their whiskey if you can as well, because I think what Henstone are doing is really interesting. And I'm looking forward to their new whiskies, and they've got some brandies and stuff out. I won't be covering the brandy on the channel, but it is an interesting spirit and it's well worth checking out if you're into that sort of thing. Yeah, again, long story long, check out the Old Dog Corner Cure. For me, I'm enjoying it and I'm going to carry on enjoying that as it goes down. Catch you again on another video.